Hello and welcome to A24 on the Rocks. I will be your host this evening, Cole William Whitlaw Gibson. Today we will be reviewing the 2017 film A Ghost Story, written and directed by David Lowery and secretly starred by him as well. But first, let's see who we got with us this evening and what they're drinking. Eric?
Hey, it's Eric Kiska, and I'm drinking an A24 Bavarian Pilsner. It's a German beer, and it tastes amazing. I need to drink more German beers. That's all I'm saying right now. Kelly, aren't you drinking the same thing?
Hey, this is Kelly Spooky Bones Kiska, wife of the man who just spoke. And I'm drinking the same thing as him because we live in the same house, even when I do have a sheet over my head. After me comes another person whose name starts with K.
Good evening, world. My name does start with K. It's Kevin. K-Con. Konachek. I'm drinking something fun tonight. It's from New Glarus Brewing Company. It's called Enigma 23. It doesn't actually have a definition. It doesn't have an actual type of beer on it. It's just complex. But it's delicious. So I'm drinking it, and I'm here. So let's go.
Enigma.
Complex
So, okay, it's like a
delicious.
mystery beer. It's like the mystery Gatorade.
Literally, it says, a complex and intriguing original. The mystery began with wild yeast, spontaneously fermenting in rich treasure of malted barley and cherries. There you go.
Oh, so it's
All right.
cherry flavored. Cool, we figured it out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's like
tonight-
the mystery Gatorade. Anyway.
Tonight I'm drinking Ghost Coast from Savannah Distillery. Very good. It's a ginger whiskey. I figured I'd pull it out for a
Ginger
ghost story.
whiskey. That sounds
nice.
interesting.
Yeah,
Like, what does
yeah,
it taste
yeah.
like? Like ginger root, ginger beer, ginger snaps?
Kind of more of like a ginger beer kind of undertone. So I typically use this when I make like a ginger and whiskey because it's like a little bit of a cheaper bottle, but I like the real extra ginger.
I have to check that out because that sounds good.
A24 on the rocks. Let's get into this film, shall we? So, this is A Ghost Story directed by David Lowery. This film is a singular exploration of legacy, love, loss, and the enormity of existence. A recently deceased white-sheeted ghost returns to his suburban home to try and reconnect with his bereaved wife. This film stars Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara as it is kind of an artistic view of the life of a ghost, in a sense. So as we start a lot of these podcasts, has anyone seen this film? I have not. This was my first time watching it. Anyone see this before?
I've seen it, yes. Way back in 2018. And it was definitely, it was
hipster
kind of like like It Comes at Night, where it's one of those films where I definitely remembered like enjoying it, but I did not fully remember the ending. And I don't know, like I'm starting to think more and more, is that a mark of like the film was not good enough to stick with me during all this time? Because I still enjoyed it, you know, like when I saw it, and maybe it's just not good enough to like really like stick with me throughout all this
think
time.
about the enormity of volume you're putting into your brain from a music
True.
and movie
Yeah.
standpoint. There's only so much space
I can stick in my brain. Yeah.
So, but
And
there are other movies that you probably have only watched once that you can remember the ending of, and it was because that movie was
totally.
over the top phenomenal. So
Seven, which is my favorite movie from the 90s, like I've said, and then Hereditary. I mean, like, there's other A24 films I will remember to this day.
We'll get into the ending some more because I think I have some
for sure.
thoughts that might elaborate on why you might not remember it. But as we first get introduced into this film, we meet our two, I will call them main characters, C and M. As far as I know, they don't have any names. I couldn't find any parts where they called each other that, but that's what they're credited as. So my first question to you all was aspect ratio. What's your thoughts on that? Let's go to Kelly first.
That aspect of it, I feel like it's So I haven't seen this movie before, but I have seen The Lighthouse, and that's a big reason of why I wanted to be part of this podcast. Because The Lighthouse I like very much. And like The Lighthouse, which is also in a similar kind of aspect ratio, I noticed this for maybe the first 5 to 10 minutes, and after that, it just makes sense, and it just kind of works. Even this one with like I don't know if it was actually shot on film or just then made to look like it's shot on film, but for me, it doesn't make a difference. The impact is still there from the actual viewing of it and the curved edges of it as well. So I noticed all that, and there's a very shallow depth of field, and they even are using, it's like the kind of, this is so millennial of me, but the kind of filter, if you put it on a digital photo, it looks like film. And that's the way that I interpreted it, which is kind of that like, it's like more teals, more rusty oranges and reds, these kind of colors I saw and noticed, I think, because of the aspect ratio right away. And I think there's a lot of interesting things you can do as a filmmaker when you have a square to work with instead of a rectangle. And they use that in that one of the first scenes that I remember standing out to me is that doorway, and how they are able to kind of use the rule of thirds to cut that doorway right into that center third. And they're able to do that because we've kind of got a square that we're looking at. So our filmmaker definitely utilized that to our advantage as the experience for us. So it was notable for sure. I don't know if it was necessary, but it was notable.
Okay. Eric, do you have any thoughts about the aspect ratio choices? And we'll throw in the film gradient.
So it's a 1:33:1 aspect ratio, so not exactly 1:1, which is really interesting. And it definitely reminds me of like old home movies that are just like in square footage. Mm-hmm. I guess like what Instagram was like originally trying to go for, even though I think they've changed it a little bit since. Like, aren't they in 4:4 now? I have no clue. It's 4:4:1:1. It's the same thing, right?
That would be the same thing. Instagram supports all kinds of sizes now. Just
for sure. And I guess David Lowery said he chose this aspect ratio because it's about someone basically trapped in a box for eternity, and I felt the claustrophobia of that situation could be amplified by the boxiness of the aspect ratio. I think the aspect ratio part worked for me. I really enjoyed the cinematography in this film, and I like that it kind of felt like a home movie to me, because old home movies are kind of in that kind of boxy aspect ratio. Mm-hmm. So it did feel very voyeuristic, and that all played into it for me.
I have another thing that it just reminded me of, and I don't remember what it's called. But do you guys remember having this kind of viewfinder as a kid? And it was like red, and you could click through it, and it was a circle.
Yeah, the wheel.
Yes. Yeah. And I had that, and it like showed
viewfinder.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. And it like showed me like scenes of The Lion King, maybe on like one disc, and then a different one was a different way. And I feel like this movie, because of the rounded edges on the squares,
Viewmaster
reminded me of a Viewmaster. And added to that, because some of the scenes are so long, it's almost like I am looking at a photograph. So that just kind of struck a chord.
Yeah. Kevin, did you have any likes or dislikes about the aspect ratio choices and the overall film filter?
Yeah. So like Kelly alluded to, the immediate reaction was, whoa. It was immediate right off the very first frame. Like, okay, this is what we're going to see. It reminded me of the introduction to that not that 70s show, sorry, The Wonder Years. Thank you. The beginning of The Wonder Years. The whole nostalgia where you're doing through the old pictures and the slides, like you guys have all alluded to already, it felt like that. Eric, the quote that you talked about was one that I was also going to mention, in the sense that they made it very intentional. The director was like, this is why I did it, and this is the effect that I went for, and it was very effective. It's exactly what I felt watching it from that perspective. Was, it felt claustrophobic, it closed in, and it made you focus on the scene itself. And I think what Kelly alluded to it, or the fact that you have long scenes, or whatever it may be, we're forced to focus on the scene for an elaborate amount of time. When the viewer is doing that, you have to have a stylistic approach to that frame in order to not just keep your attention, but to also make it, noteworthy in that perspective. So I think that they did a great job by making it important that what we were watching, as artistic as it was through a different frame than maybe a normal movie or something that, isn't approached with this lens. So I thought it did a great job. It was apparent that they were going for it right off the bat, and I appreciated the attention to detail in a movie that had such great attention to detail across the entire board from start to finish.
For sure. So I will say I'm typically a hater of artistic aspect ratios when it comes to film, mostly because I feel like a lot of times it gets used almost as like a crutch. It is just, it's just a director chooses to do it because they feel artistic, and it doesn't necessarily add anything to the film. So when I first saw it, my initial reaction was, this guy's probably like a pompous asshole. He probably thinks he's doing something special here. But he definitely kind of changed my thoughts on the unique aspect ratio and like the rounded edges. I felt like the film grain at certain points when there was the long, which he used a lot of long shots that just dragged on. I felt like things were almost like playing a trick of the eye, where I was like trying to find stuff moving or something was going to happen when in reality nothing was happening. But I was just like the scene in the hospital, right? But it was interesting. I didn't hate it, but I was not the biggest fan at first. As we progress through this film, we start to, I guess, kind of understand who M and C are, although you never... This film is very... It feels, empty in dialogue. Before we get to that, I want to know what your guys' opinions are on ghosts. Are you pro-ghost, anti-ghost? Do you believe in ghosts? And do you think ghosts are portrayed as people with sheets? Do I have any volunteers that want to share me?
No, I think I asked.
I
talked last. No, I'm not volunteering. But the question about the sheets is definitely one that we should all ponder quite well. Like, why is that the quintessential ghost look? Right?
Ghosts with sheets are the cutest. That's the answer for ghost sheets.
My favorite ghost movie is Beetlejuice, and those ghosts wear sheets, so I think that makes sense.
Well, they got ripped on for wearing sheets, actually.
They did, yeah. Right? And they're like, that's right. Why are you using my mom's
Winona Ryder
sheets?
Definitely ripped on them.
That's
yeah.
right.
Well, I just thought, like, maybe historically, I didn't check on this, but historically, we would put sheets over dead people after they died so no one could see them. And that's maybe somebody, like, put two and two together one day, and they were just like, well, what if ghosts were just, like, people wrapped in those sheets floating around?
Well, and I think the movie does a great job of describing that, right, Cole? I mean, we get to the point where that scene, and I'm sure we'll get to it, but he literally sits up in bed with the sheet, and that's just the sheet that he ends up wearing for the rest of his eternity as a ghost, was the hospital bed, just like Eric said, covering a dead body. So I think that's probably exactly the answer.
What if he was, like, in a war uniform, or, like, he died at war? Would he be in his camouflage, uniform the rest of his life?
Well, if we follow certain ghost rules in film, that would follow.
Yeah.
But to answer Cole's question, if I'm pro or anti-ghost as a political vote, I would say that I am pro-ghost. I think that ghosts are more like leftover energy. I think that there's more to the experience that we just have in these bodies on this world. And I think that, like, animals are sensitive to certain things that we don't necessarily prescribe as intelligence the way that we experience it. But animals can sense ghosts or left behind energy. Our friend who studies anthropology described it once as, like, if someone spends their whole life opening and shutting cabinets in the same house for like 60 years, of course, maybe those cabinets are going to keep opening and shutting for a while afterwards. It's like left behind, like, traces of just like physics at that point. And I think that that's what it is. It's just like a leftover kind of energy that we don't sense with our, like, finite senses. That's my ghost stance.
And that's my friend Rhea Mazzola, who we interviewed on this podcast, and she said that, like, yeah, like after you die, there might be leftover energy from your body. Like, it's actually been proven that energy leaves your body when you die. It's just the question of where it goes, and does this energy have any code to it, basically? Like, does it have any information to it? I personally believe it has no information to it. Your energy just goes out into the world, and maybe gets recycled somehow and then evaporates. But there are people that believe that energy sticks around, especially things that they love or were near throughout their life.
Cole, you opened up this bag of worms, so I'm sorry. This is on you. But ghosts have to be inherently tied to religion for me in my brain one way or another because of the idea of the afterlife. If you're raised on any sort of religion, doesn't matter what religion, 9 of 10 of them have some sort of an afterlife tied into them, right? Which the idea that after you die, your spirit goes on to something different. So ghosts are born of this idea that there is something after you die, that you're not a piece of organic material that just returns to the earth. So in order to believe in ghosts, one would in theory have to believe in some sort of religious doctrine or afterlife. Not necessarily true, but I would say that's my generalization. So as me, being someone who has avowed not to have any real religious religious loyalties. I don't know. I am talking out my ass right now. I don't believe in ghosts. There you go. Affiliation. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. Yep. I do not believe in ghosts. I think that when we die, we go back to the dirt, and that's just the end of it. But I do think that your brains are really powerful. I think that your brain is going to create a whole lot of stuff, meaning repetition. We just talked about the idea that someone's memory is in everything that you see because you've been exposed to that person and that place for the last 40, 50, 60 plus years. So you're going to see things, your brain's going to create things, and the unexplained is the unexplained for a reason. So that's what this movie touches on, which I really love a lot too, is that idea that this could very well be the reality of what exists, mostly because this movie did such a great job of convincing you that it could be. In its own world, in its own space, regardless of what you believe outside of it. I can leave this movie believing my significant other, if they're not done with something on Earth, they're going to stay here until it's done. And I think that's really powerful. I think this movie did a great job of giving me something else to think about when it comes to the afterlife and ghosts in general. And I'm glad we're discussing it because that's powerful. That's why this movie exists in general. It's an art piece. We all know this. But the idea that there might be a way for our loved ones to stay close to us after they die is pretty cool, regardless of what you believe one way or another.
I was thinking in the first, third of this movie that the best and worst thing about, finding someone as your, loved life partner in this life is that one of you has to die first. And I think that this movie forces us to have so many meditative, introspective moments, and so many moments where we fill in the blanks of what the characters on screen are thinking, that it causes you to just have these kind of thoughts. That was my thought when she had to identify his body, or we see with a ton of bricks, for me, him after getting into that car wreck, and it's just oh, there it just hit. So that was the first thing that it made me think about, and I'm how it's bittersweet because you have that, and that's the best thing ever, but one of you has to outlive the other, and more times than not. And how horrible that aspect is on the other side of finding your person.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you could do, take it in your own hands. Both go out at the same time.
Thanks for reminding me that that's an option.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
That's an argument in its own self, but we'll save
that for another time. When it comes to ghosts and me and my relationship with ghosts, I would say I'm an agnostic ghost believer. I haven't necessarily had any what I would call paranormal experiences. I'm not opposed to it. I don't think it's crazy to think that there's something unexplainable in the transfer of energy and all that. It makes sense. I can rationalize it in my mind that I could see that being a thing that's possible, but I haven't necessarily seen or come to the conclusion that it is possible, right? So I'm the Dr. Pepper of ghost believing. Don't know what I am. Just
as Aaron Rodgers once said, your favorite QB He said, there are
Yes.
ghosts and they live in my butthole.
I
that
don't
an
think
actual
he
quote?
said that.
That's an actual quote.
I don't know if he said that, but
He's not a quarterback anymore.
We'll proceed.
Still Cole's favorite QB.
You know.
Anyway.
Proceed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's
I'm
amazing.
gonna make fun of Cole.
Come on, ayahuasca changes the life. As we progress through this film, we've already touched on it. One of the main characters, Casey Affleck, dies. So he dies roughly, I think, 15 minutes into this film, and that's where the ghost story begins. And during his journey, we essentially follow his kind of through his eyes, kind of a progression of time and space, and how he perceives the world through the other side in a way, right? And I thought this film does a lot of kind of unique and interesting takes in terms of how it, shows the ghosts and his interactions with the world. So my question is, how do you feel that this ghost was represented from his looks, from his interactions, his inability to speak, but yet they could communicate via telekinesis with other ghosts? And we'll go to Eric.
I think it makes sense that ghosts could communicate with other ghosts because they're in a different realm of being. Yeah, they could probably telekinetically speak. How do they depict? It's kind of like a classic idea of a ghost where you just have a spirit just sitting around the house observing everything. And I feel like the camera work in this film is very much reminiscent of a ghost just observing everything, being voyeuristic, observing a lot of these futile moments and sometimes boring moments, which, I think there might be one other person on this podcast that might echo those statements, that there were some very boring, long moments in this movie. But I do feel like that is life. We have a lot of these slow, futile, sometimes what we think are meaningless moments that when we try to apply meaning to them, it really is only something that is a blip in the universe's timeline. But to one person, it does mean a lot of things. And to this ghost, our main character, M, who is just observing everything in this house throughout this film, it does mean a lot, all these things, because this house is something he's held on to and loved for so long. The camera work, like I said again, is just so reminiscent of this ghost and what we're seeing, especially at the start of the film too. I feel like all the camera shots that we got at the start of the film were M actually viewing them through his eyes. So yeah, I think this was kind of your classic depiction of a ghost, but a take on it that we probably haven't seen before.
Kevin?
Ghost. There was a ghost in my room. Ghost. Literally, a ghost just dropped something behind me. I think that what Eric just said about this being a scope of real life is the best part about it. The long scenes made me feel like this is exactly what you would observe if you were watching someone go through this grief period. And I think that was what the director was going for. It was the idea that you were going to be a fly on the wall or a ghost in a room watching the person you care for the most in this world go through the unimaginable. And somehow this movie made me actually feel it. They captured it in a way where I could be this is exactly what would happen. I would have a 7-minute scene where you watch someone eat pie, which is clearly the first meal they've had since someone died. And you have empathy for someone. And that scene is hard, and I'm sure we'll just digest it right now. Some people watch that scene and they go, what the hell are we doing? This is 7 minutes of someone eating pie. I'm the person who watched that scene and was just keep going, because this is raw, this is visceral, this is real, this is the emotion. This movie was so good at making the viewer write the dialogue, write the script, write what the words might have been, but you don't need them recited. You just think about them. Anybody who's ever dealt with a death, anyone who's ever dealt with a loss of a loved one, puts themselves in an empathetic spot when we're watching this poor woman, like I said, eat the first meal she's probably, or even first, anything she's had since her other half passed away. And all of a sudden you're just put into this spot where you have to empathize. You have no choice. If you're watching this movie and you're giving it the time of day, you're not on your phone, you're really paying attention, You have to empathize with this person. You have to feel what she's feeling, even though there's nothing on the screen other than her devouring pie and eventually vomiting. This scene was freaking phenomenal. I'm sorry. It really does touch on why this movie for me was so great and why this movie for a lot of people is divisive, because this scene alone, it makes or break this movie. If you don't like this scene, if you walk away from this movie going, what the fuck did I just watch a woman crying and eating pie for 7 minutes? Then you'd miss the point and you didn't watch the movie. And if that's some of you, I'm sorry. We're going to have that conversation. It's just what it is. But I really liked that scene and I thought it made the whole movie. So there we go.
The scene that Kevin's talking about, it is from the first bite she takes. So not any of the lead up of the pie or like when she's thrown up. From first bite to the last bite, it's a solid 5 minutes of her just straight eating a pie. And my question to you, Kelly, is do you think that was the first time she's ever eaten a pie?
Trick question.
Have you guys watched The Whale yet? Because that'll be coming in our,
Yes.
our
No,
database.
no, I need to, though.
One of these days. I had so many thoughts during this scene, because what else can you do? Kevin said, I'm not opening the doors to like wail on you. I'm not
it's
gonna
fine.
do that.
I know we're gonna have controversy. It's okay.
I have so many thoughts about this movie, but also you guys know from me saying like I was really looking forward to watching this movie. It was like what I was looking forward to in the next year when we did our yearly wrap up. And I had an open mind about it until the pie scene. And it's not because I think it's a pretentious scene. I have a personal problem with the sound of people. Like, I have whatever that thing is, misophonia.
Misophonia.
And Eric knows it. That's why he answers right away. If I hear chewing, I hear swallowing, I hear forks scraping on teeth, plates, all this kind of stuff, I am furious. I cannot control it. It makes me so mad, and it lasted so long. And we just had to watch the ghost watch her just being the worst for me. And I understood it, and like while she was standing and eating it, I was like, that's good, girl. Like, get it out. You're alone for once. Like, eat your feelings, do what you need to do, get your sustenance. But it's like, at a point, it just became, all right, this is the filmmaker's choice to like show this is her grieving period. And then everything goes so fast after that. And it's like, why do I have to watch it as her just making the worst sounds that I've ever heard? Like a torture scene, like a waterboarding for me and my ears personally. It killed me. And that's when everything shifted for me. It was a pre-pie scene and a post-pie scene. And post-pie scene, I had to try to get myself back to normal to appreciate this movie and its choices afterwards, but I can't forget it. So that bothered me so much. But separate from that, I love the way we have, to go back to your original question, the way that our ghost self experiences time. And I call it our ghost self because this is the plus and minus, is I'm already sitting still and observing a movie. Did I really want to watch the movie through another character being still and watching a movie? And that was like a positive and minus for me. But I think it was cool how time passes. Like, he'll turn a corner and it's been like 5 years maybe. He'll turn another corner and now it's been like an era. Like, these kind of moments I think were really strong and interesting. And I know I'm raising so many points right now, but I like ghost time experience, I think was like a huge plus for this movie. But pie eating scene was the worst thing I've ever seen.
All
like,
right,
since Spring Breakers.
My previous statement of where if people don't like the pie scene, then they don't get this movie. I apologize. That's not the truth at all. I just liked it. And I think that's the cool part, is that this movie can divide people in that way. Eric, your turn. Cole, I know you're the host, but I gotta hear this. What did you think of the pie scene?
I was fine with the pie scene, and like I said earlier, the cinematography was so beautiful in this that it got me through some of those slow plotting scenes at the start of the film, because I just enjoyed staring at the photography of the film. You know, like it's one of those films, as I've said before, you could take out each frame and make it into a photograph. And that's when you know the cinematography is really impactful. So I enjoyed it. Is that enough to get me through this whole film, or like take it to an A for me? You'll just have to wait and hear. And that's what they call a teaser in the biz.
Hell yeah.
So have to wait and find out. 20 more minutes.
I think that Eric's appreciation of the pie scene was ruined because he knew how I was taking in the pie scene, and he was side-eyeing me for 5 full minutes. Like, when is she going to snap? When is she going to snap? And then I snapped.
I do have to say, though, that was only the second best pie scene ever put on film. Number one's American Pie.
Yeah, good.
Everybody knows that's the best pie scene of all time.
The Great Race is the best pie scene of all time because they have a giant, giant pie
Jason
fight.
Biggs sticking his dick in a pie is the best pie scene of all
What
time.
about Game of Thrones? I mean, that one kid kind of sucked, and he fucking ate a pie, and
What about Game of Thrones? Arya makes that pie.
Yeah, let's not spoil that, but yeah.
This is a pie podcast. Okay, spoiler for a TV show that came out like 15 years ago.
Okay, you get angry at me when I spoil The Sopranos for you, so get out of here.
That's because I keep telling you I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, it's been longer than Game of Thrones, though. So.
If you have 2 hours and 40 minutes, watch the 1965 comedy adventure, The Great Race, for the best pie scene in history.
Okay,
All right.
back on track. I will say I'm between Team Kelly and Team Kevin. I love 90-minute films. This film is 90 minutes, which is great.
I'm somewhere between two extremes.
Yes, yeah. I'm what you would call agnostic in the political party system as well. So I love 90-minute films, but I hated how slow this movie started with the long lingering. Like, again, the pie scene was 5 minutes of just her eating, let alone the lead up and the aftermath. Like, that was a good 10-minute, 15 minutes of her just essentially eating a pie for them in a 90-minute film. And then there was the scene where he's dead and she sees his body. After she leaves, it sits there for 3 minutes on a still shot of just nothingness, right? I did not like that, but as I progressed through the movie, I think I maybe picked up on what he was trying to portray, which is, again, the ghost timeline of how, when a traumatic event happens, how slow everything seems and how every day just becomes like a huge struggle and everything's so long and so drawn out and so depressing and so miserable. But then as time progresses, things get better and it moves on. And from the ghost perspective, there's that big shift after that pie scene where it goes from a glacial pace to just like a exponential graph all the way up until I guess a ghost suicide. I don't really know. Let's talk about that for a second.
Hold on, real quick. Is it maybe because I have an internal monologue that just never shuts the hell up? But during those scenes, like you mentioned, Cole, the 3 minutes of quiet, like all I could think about was the movie. What was happening? Why was it quiet? What were the things that were happening during that time period? Were you supposed to be thinking about our characters? How they got there? What was happening? Because that was what for me. And maybe that's just my brain, but like I was just constantly like, this is weird, but it's an art piece, but it's here for a reason, so let's embrace it.
The whole entire time, I'm just like frantically looking around the whole entire scene. Like, am I missing something? Something's got to be happening. There's someone going to come out of there. Something's going to happen. And then nothing does. And then I'm like, I just wasted all of that time. Kelly, you have something to say.
Yeah, I think that these scenes with like there's nothing for your eyeball to eat during a lot of these scenes. I mean, you can look around frantically from screen to screen. But as long as you're giving it the time, and like Kevin said, you're not playing on your phone, it is such a good playground for you to pay full attention to the sound design. And there's so much to say for that. There's so many background noises that are just crafted and layered on top of each other and full of depth. And I think that it gives them everything that they need. And it also makes me think about how movies are so much more than just what you see and hear, but very much what you experience personally. And this movie forces you to experience a lot of it personally. They are not spoon feeding you in any regard. It's very much up to you to derive from this movie what you want to derive. And in that, it's a very like introspective, kind of like isolating movie where it's like It's almost like you're sitting down to do like a 90-minute meditation in some regards, like guided meditation.
Get out of my head.
Also,
exactly. Like literally, I just want to interject. Like she's saying exactly what I feel. 100%.
Just take it. Just take it. Don't interject.
I'm embracing
it.
And okay, wait. You were about to skip towards him jumping off the skyscraper. Let's not skip over the whole party scene where that guy gave a fucking crazy monologue about like how futile life is.
That was a whole thing too.
We got to touch on that.
That was a big deal.
Let's rewind time. We'll jump off a building. We'll rewind time real quick.
Or we'll live through it again and
before
come back
that.
to it.
Yeah,
exactly.
whatever. We'll figure it out eventually.
This podcast back
let's
in
talk
review.
about let's talk about the music and sound design. We haven't touched on that, and Kelly just mentioned it. Very, very strange, but I felt like it was very good. A lot of weird silences where that long drawn out where it was like nothing. But then this film has a very big tie-in with music, and there's some things that I'll probably share with you guys, but I want to hear. Eric, tell me about your thoughts with the music.
So the soundtrack was done by a guy named Daniel Hart, who also did The Green Knight, and our director/writer also wrote and directed The Green Knight, which is a feature A24 film we will watch that is very beloved. But the first thing I see when I go to this guy's page is chamber pop. That's the genre they put him in. And I think that's kind of perfect. Like chamber ghost pop. Like it's something I would hear if I was a ghost and I wanted to sit down and jam to some music. But it's very like indie, has that kind of 80s influence, very synthy, and especially the song that M wrote. I would definitely call that chamber pop too. And I actually really enjoyed that song. Kelly listened to it. C. Is C or the ghost?
C for Casey.
Yeah.
M for Mara.
Yep. Okay. C. The song that C wrote, Kelly listened to it and was just like, this is your kind of music, and it totally is. It's that kind of indie synthy sound that I really enjoy. But then at other parts of the film, they have beautiful string sections accompanied to some of this beautiful cinematography I was talking about. So I really enjoyed the theme, and it definitely brought us through the film and filled in those scenes that might have seemed monotonous to other people. It filled them in for me and made them a little more exciting for me, which is what you need out of a score.
Kevin, you got any more music things you want to throw out?
My first note about the sound design or the music was the silence itself. The silence felt sad, that they had somehow emotionally laced the idea that you were able to have silence in between scenes that made you feel a certain way emotionally. And when you look at these movies, I mean, we're coming up on 50 A24 movies here. I don't know if we're at it or not, or over.
We're right over, 2 over now.
2 over. Yeah. So my point is that every single one of them, we talk about this for a various reason or another, and that this film just did a really great job of making that soundtrack unique. So they made a character's backstory music, piano, the idea that he was an artist, and that played so much into his character before death that even in death it became such a huge backbone of what he was about. I really enjoyed that song. There was even the really cool scene, right, where we get the flashback to the settlers, where the little girl is walking through the field, as after their parents have settled down or whatever. And I think she's whispering or humming or whistling a song. And it's his song. It's C's song. It's a flashback to that callback. So the music is throughout the entirety of the timelines, but I really enjoyed their use of silence and the in-between times that really made the soundtrack special. Another movie I talked about that I could listen to the soundtrack independently was Swiss Army Man. In this one, I also could feel like I could just sit down and listen to the soundtrack from start to finish and enjoy all of it, because it has so many just different things between it all, and it really focused on making this movie extra special. When you didn't have a lot of dialogue, you didn't have a lot of anything else, and in 90 minutes you had to make something special. So I think they did a really great job.
I agree. So moving on into further into the story, right before we jump to Ghost Suicide, our other main character, M, she stuffs a note into a seam in the house as she's leaving. So she's selling the house that her and C had together, and she stuffs a note into it, and that kind of becomes like a driving force for C for a while. My question is to Kelly. What do you think she put on that note?
I think that the note doesn't matter at all. Our established ghost rules are, well, what I always thought when it comes to sheet on head ghosts is they're holding on to something, and once they are able to find it, they go off to the afterlife. And I like that for our ghost rules in this movie, what we see from the hospital is he has a door that's opened that he could walk through, and that is signifying the afterlife from my perspective. And then he decides to hang on for something because he knows through his little time loop that there is a little note that's left. And that's our first, like, that's like how the scene opens, or how the whole movie opens too, is it's her telling us, like, this is a thing I do before I move from place to place, as I leave a little note behind. Mm-hmm. And it's just like a few words she says, or a small poem, or some memory that she had there in case she returns. So it really doesn't matter what she wrote. It's just the fact that he was desperately curious about it, and that's what he's holding on to.
He was hanging on to her,
he's hanging
I think,
on to her,
right?
and he's hanging on to that, which is associated with her. So once he opens it, it really doesn't matter for us. We don't even know their names, I think, is a huge thing. And I think that we're also supposed to see ourselves in these characters. So whatever she wrote, if we even saw it, would kind of cheapen it, because if it's not shown, then we get to put whatever we want on that paper. That would be enough for us to let go if we were that ghost. So that's how I interpreted it.
We've already had so much in this movie where we had to interpret ourselves. I think that's exactly the point, that you have to fill in the blanks for yourself. What that note means for you if you were the ghost in that scenario holding on to someone you love.
Yeah. And I think it's just like classic ghost rules, I think. As complicated as this movie could seem, I think it's actually a pretty simple film. I think that classic ghost rules are like, if you're holding on to something in this realm, then you will be stuck here. He was holding on to the house. He was holding on to his girlfriend, partner. Then that note was there. I think he didn't notice that note was going to be there until she left the house. But like, he's like, I've got to stay here till I figure out this note, and I won't let go of her until I find this note. And that's what kept him there the whole time.
Really, I just wanted to bring up the note thing. One, I like all of your guys' explanations. I wholeheartedly agree. But the actress, Rooney Mara, was told to write something very special to herself in that note, stuffed in the wall. And that house was actually demolished for real during like a renovation project or something. And that note was lost forever. And she has never revealed what she wrote into it, and has claimed she forgot it, even though I feel like she probably wouldn't and just didn't want to share it. But I thought that was a neat little touch.
That's a good real life way to do it. I would do the same thing in her shoes, and I respect that.
Yeah. No, I think the director, Lowery, does a lot of interesting things that kind of make it almost feel, I don't know, more real, more grounded, more emotion and more thoughts behind it, more energy, some would say.
More energy.
We all know it was just the dick butt meme.
Passion.
Yeah. But now we're going to get to, I think, Eric's favorite scene. As they start progressing through the timeline, she moves out, a family moves in that speaks Spanish. During that whole entire scene, they never put subtitles. You never know what they're saying unless you could speak Spanish, which I could not. No idea what they're doing. And they eventually move out, and the party kind of moves in, and we get introduced to a character who actually has the longest dialogue in the whole film, and has more than double the dialogue of our two main characters put together. And his name is... No one knows. Eric, tell me about this guy.
Well, I think that David Lowery put this guy in this film because it was very much how he was feeling at the time when he wrote this. Lowery literally said that he went through an existential crisis when writing this film because he read about the possibility of a catastrophic earthquake. And this character at the party specifically mentions, like, there's going to be a catastrophic earthquake that,
super volcano,
kills most of humanity, 90% of humanity. He was saying, I was not feeling optimistic about the future of mankind. I felt the world was on its way to ending. The film became my way of dealing with those issues. So he definitely, like, inserted this character here to just kind of talk about this existential crisis he was going through, and that crisis is like the legacy you leave behind, which is, I think, something that all of us deal with. Like, what kind of legacy will we leave behind? Some people say, okay, I will have kids, and they will have kids, and that's the legacy I leave behind. Others want to write a book. They want to write a symphony. They want to write some music. They want to put it out in the world and hope that it stays around forever. And this character is saying that, well, eventually humanity is going to be wiped out. Even if 10% of humanity lives, the sun will overtake the earth, and maybe all those people will die. Even those people go on to another planet, and they somehow live, and they somehow remember that one piece of music that stayed from humanity. Eventually those people are going to die, so it's all just very futile and sad. And I mean, I don't agree with him that everything we make in this life and our legacy is just completely meaningless, and that's what I think our director was trying to say. Thinking about it through like the sense of this film where we have a ghost living through like a whole timeline, just seeing like what becomes of a place as you go on before he does jump off that building. It's such an interesting, like, philosophical question to ourselves. If we do become ghosts, will we see that legacy as it goes on? And I really enjoyed that scene and felt that kind of actually brought the whole film together for me, and it actually gave me a philosophical question to ponder when it could have just left things a little more unsaid. And so I actually enjoyed that the director was a little on the nose right there.
Would you say that the party philosophy guy is actually the main character, since he's the one that gives you most of the context throughout the film and speaks the most?
No, but I do think this is just like, our director-writer, David Lowery, inserting a character into the film, saying, like, this is what I'm really thinking and why I made this film. Mm-hmm. And also I think if we stay in one place for long enough, we will all see that kind of guy at a party. Who was just spouting off about like philosophy when nobody really wants to hear it. So,
well, this scene for me took place post pie scene, so I have my cynical brain on now. And with his whole scene, I was like, I remember the first time I smoked pot at a party. That's how I felt about him. And it's just like, after a while, it was just like, shut up, dude. But also, like, his whole philosophy for me, and I love that we live in postmodern times because I can talk to you guys in meme speak. But you guys know the meme of, like, the train where one side's looking out and it's, like, all dark and drab and the other side's looking out and it's all sunny skies. Maybe both of them are just thinking, life is meaningless. And that's also another A24 movie, massive theme from a very famous one, Everything Everywhere All at Once, is life is meaningless. Great thing, tragic thing. And that's what this movie's trying to tell us with this self-insert of the director being oversharing philosophy, pot smoke guy, first time smoking pot at a party. And like, and that's how I took him in. Though.
Yeah, if we want to go through the, I don't want to go too far down a philosophical conversation, but I don't think life is meaningless because what we do while we are here can definitely affect other people and can hurt other people or lift them up and make their lives better. And I think that matters to me.
But if you're so cynical to think that it doesn't matter in 200, 500, 700 years, that's the idea that this guy is saying. He says, you can make art now. Beethoven was great, but Beethoven ain't going to mean shit in 3,000 years. So, man, let's talk about the scene for a little bit. I mean, we've all touched on it a little bit. For me, looking at the scene after the movie concludes is a whole lot more powerful than the scene during it. I, like Kelly, kind of got to the point where I was like, dude, shut the hell up. Mostly because I think the movie counteracts his opinion. I think that the movie kind of gives you the idea that as a person in a relationship on Earth, you can make a lasting impact on a person. It may not be Beethoven's Fifth, but your impact on individuals in your life, your family, your friends, your significant others, it doesn't matter if it's going to last 5,000 years. What matters right now? What matters in the moment? What matters in their immediate memory of you? And I think that that's what the movie wants to say, that you may be nihilistic, you may be away from the idea that nothing matters. It's just all futile and inevitable. But if you do break it down, those little moments, those little pieces of music, those little pieces of memory matter a whole lot to those individuals in that time. And I think that's what I took away from it.
Yeah, personal philosophy, I'm completely with you, Kevin. Like, 100%. This guy's very much focused on legacy, and I think that the movie director is focused on legacy as well. I personally think that that's just like a load of baloney. When you're dead, you're dead. And I think that this movie also full frontal faces the fear of death, which doesn't have to necessarily be a phobia, especially you're not going to know what's left behind by you, but you know only right here and right now is like what's actually tangible. And these are all things that if the movie was filmed in any other way, or if it wasn't as slow as it was in some regards, we wouldn't be thinking about, we wouldn't be talking about based on just watching a movie together. But I interrupted you, Eric. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, like, 99.9% of us don't leave behind that much of a legacy. And so it goes back to my original point is, like, what we do while we're here, how we help or make other people's lives better. If we can even make one person's life better, then it was all worth it, in my opinion. And the people we hurt, you know, like while we're here, that is also like if you're making other people's lives shitty while you're on this earth, then that sucks too. Like you're while we're here, what we do with this time does matter, in my opinion. And even if it doesn't, if it's not remembered forever, it's still like where we're put during this time.
God, this episode is gonna be wild.
Yeah.
This is bad.
So,
let's
back
talk about
to,
philosophy and meaning life for a whole while here.
Yeah. So back to the important thing. Who is the main character for this film? Kelly?
The ghost. Whoever the ghost is.
Oh.
And when the ghosts ask
Casey.
each other, like, who are you waiting for? I think it's the neighbor ghost is my main character.
Okay. I just wanted to point out a fact that if you think that Casey Affleck is the main character, I think you're wrong, because he only talks. He's like physically present in this film for only the first 8 minutes and then the last 10 minutes, which means that he's not a part of this film for 78% of this film. It says absolutely nothing. I get why it's there.
Cole, what's the title of this movie?
It.
Cole, what's the title of this movie?
It's called A Ghost Story. But
Thank you.
You know what?
Who's
The
the
ghost
ghost?
doesn't tell anything.
Who's the
He doesn't
ghost?
tell me a story.
Doesn't matter.
no.
He's the main character.
I just want to be an asshole.
You just want to be controversial.
Yeah, exactly. But speaking of controversial, let's talk about ghost suicide. What the hell happened?
let's do
Someone, please explain
He
to
jumped
me.
off a building and then he started back at the time loop of like when that house was first created, and then he realized he was in a time loop. Like
Look, if you're a ghost, your brink is gonna be when like
When skyscrapers
Blade Runner
happen.
2000 happens.
When
Yeah.
Blade
Yeah,
Runner
like-
happens.
like I'm stuck
Yeah, when
in
Blade Runner
fucking
happens,
corporate
you're like,
America.
it's
I'm gonna
over.
kill myself.
Blade Runner is the end of ghosts. It's the only thing.
Exactly.
We-
Blade Runner, that's it. It's
we
over.
jump from this like podunk town, like a small mobile home like house, like several of them next to each other, them getting demoed, to the biggest skyscraper the world has ever seen. And it gets built up into a metropolis, which turns out makes people depressed. And our ghost takes a header off the top of the building, and he gets transported back in time. I got just like I really don't know what happened, to be honest. And then there was two ghosts, and I'm the big dumb idiot of the podcast, so I need someone to explain to me what the hell just happened, and why does a ghost killing itself make him travel back in time?
Because time
Were
is
you
circular.
literally taking this movie as literal before this point?
Time
or
is
it
a flat
took like
circle, man.
45 minutes
Yeah, I
in,
was
you're
gonna
like,
say,
man,
I
I
watched
can't take this
Arrival,
movie
so-
seriously anymore. Cole, come on.
I think it was
just-
just the time loop he was stuck in.
I
That's
know,
like the
but,
time
like-
loop. Yeah.
I don't know what you
I
need to
just-
explain. It's
No,
just the way it is.
I don't know. I just,
okay.
I thought there was a set of rules and regulations for ghosts living, and now we can transport back in time. And
Look.
I want to know how there's a point where there's two ghosts and a live Casey Affleck, and I am so confused as to are
beginning
both
and
the
the
ghosts
ending-
him,
It's the time
and
loop.
is he still the person?
Look.
Is there going to be 3 ghosts next time?
There
when
would
he
have been
jumps
3
off?
ghosts. if,
Yes, there would
yeah.
have been.
Okay.
If he doesn't close the loop, it's going to get
So we're
progressively
watching the
worse.
first loop of this time
That's the
continuum.
first loop.
Okay.
Then the second loop was him going back, and then he realized, oh shit, like, I will make a third loop if I'm not careful here.
Yeah.
But then he finally finds the note. He realizes, okay, before she paints over this wall, I can actually dig out this note she just left. He finds it, and then his meaning for existing as a ghost completely like evaporates when he reads that note. He's like, I have no reason to be on this metaphysical plane anymore, and then he evaporates, and that's what happens.
I wrote the question: what would keep a soul tethered to this place? Like, what would be the thing that would do it for you?
Yeah.
And that's a great question, right?
This is like The Sixth Sense. Like The Sixth Sense, when Haley Joel Osment finally helps the ghosts are like, I no longer have to be here. And then
you're telling me this story is just
afterlife.
Bruce Willis from Sixth Sense and Looper jammed together, where we got a ghost doing time travel now?
True.
Look, this
I guess
movie
it is
shouldn't be
time
taken
travel.
at
It's
a
just all
literal
Bruce
face
Willis.
value, and you know that.
don't
We
need
knew
Casey
that when
Affleck.
the pie scene happened, okay?
well,
This is not to be taken
I think
as a
that-
literal
I guess-
ghost story.
the ghost rules are like, okay, I guess you can kill yourself, but then you just start out back at the time loop, and then you go through
You
the
go
time
way
loop again.
back.
Yeah, and then, well, yeah, until that like structure was starting to be created or something. But then once your like reason for even like existing in the metaphysical sense goes, then like
So
you're
the,
gone.
the other
Yeah.
ghost left after they realized that someone wasn't coming back.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That
what was
the-
their
just
reason?
one other ghost. Yeah, I think it might have been like a lover waiting for their lover to come back, like to the house that they inhabited,
Or their
and
kid,
then she finally
or their
when the-
parent.
Yeah, when the house or something. Yeah, when the house finally got bulldozed, then that that was that. So
I was hoping
she's
that
like,
the
oh, no one's coming back for me. I'm gonna go.
So
to the next
that
step.
ghost should have let itself get hit by the bulldozer to
Yeah.
then go back in time to then meet its lover in completed
I
cycle.
don't know if the suicide
Yes.
rules work for me.
So
Then
why-
slowly
this-
hanging on to something still on this metaphysical plane.
Is this a
Right.
pro-suicide movie?
I got
Oh,
I got to put a spoiler alert.
So why I imagined that our ghost was gonna like witness his lover die, and then her ghost is gonna be sitting around, but maybe she moved on to a different lover and is waiting for that lover. But I was hoping that the final scene would be all of the Casey Affleck ghosts layered on top of each other through time. So we have like 100 of them in the house, maybe 200, maybe 350 of them, all watching the pie scene.
Oh, we jumped the shark.
Yeah,
That's how the movie should
That's
have ended
where
for
I-
me.
Okay, so my question. So this movie ends where he digs the note out, right?
yeah.
What happened to the other version of him, the other ghost boy?
It would have gotten to that point in the time loop where he came back around and
Yeah.
then finally
He's in
found the
the
note.
future.
Then
He
we-
closed off. He closed
the
off
future
the
one
loop
finds
when
it.
he,
So why?
when he
Okay.
found his reasoning to like, or when he found out that like, oh hey, this is what the
But
note
if
said. I
time
have
is
no
a circle,
So why
Then
did
it doesn't-
first ghost never notice
would-
second ghost sitting on piano behind first ghost?
because it couldn't have like it. You know, it didn't
what's
exist to
happening
him
here?
at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
didn't exist.
we're in a time loop.
I'll tell you what, this David Lowery guy's a real kooky character.
You love the Green Knight. Come on.
I do. And I don't hate this
No
movie.
spoilers, damn it.
You'll probably be surprised by my rating. I just, I will say, so this movie is one of those movies where when I was watching it, a lot of things, it just irritated me. But as like the movie concluded and I sat and I thought about it, getting ready for this podcast, I was just like, maybe I like love this movie. And then I was like, well, I don't love this movie, that's for sure. But maybe, because I don't know, there's just like a lot of things that this movie does, very small, that kind of trickle throughout. And it does tell like a very interesting story with almost like no dialogue, like zero dialogue, mostly just a lot of Spanish at some points. So so let's before we get into our conclusion, what do you think this movie was like trying to accomplish besides confusing people with time loops? And do you think they accomplished it with the minimum dialogue and like the cinematography and things like that. I want to go to Kevin first.
This movie asks the simple question, what if ghosts exist? What if the people that are most important in your life die and don't leave and have something else unfinished? And what would that look like if they were watching you as you continued to live? These questions we ask ourselves anytime that someone in our lives pass away, whether it be someone that we knew a lot or someone very little. The idea of what that impact of that person had in your life and what you had on them is a subtle question. Probably not something you ask pretty obviously. You don't go, man, I wonder if that person really loved me or liked me or whatever the scenario may have been. But this movie asks that question of what if they were still here and they had to see those things. And for me personally, I think it was trying to accomplish the basic idea of our director asking himself a whole lot of questions and wanting to express it in his art. Eric touched on it with his existential crisis comment that the director and our writer has kind of come to a crossroads in his own opinion on these things, and that's why he's asking the viewer. I think it's really personal. I think each person, based on their own level of loss in their lives, is probably going to take this movie a little bit different. I've had a couple of traumatic experiences from loss, and so for me, I think I take this movie a little bit differently because I think about that from the various individuals that may or may not be ghosts in my life, whatever that looks like. Are they waiting for something? Am I waiting for something from them? All the deep introspective things that this movie brings up. I'll touch on it when I get to my review, but I love the fact that it just asked me that question at all. And that was really important to me. So, yeah.
I'll allow anyone else to answer that same question, but I also have a follow-up question. Do you think C and M actually had a good relationship? Kelly?
I don't know that we have enough to know for sure, but I definitely don't doubt that they loved each other very much. And I think that's all that we're privy to. And I don't really think that it matters in the end for the aspect of the movie. I think that we're just shown what we're shown.
Eric, any thoughts?
I don't think they did. I think he was severely depressed, shown by his hair and his beard. That's a depressed person's facial hair and beard.
That's a hot person's hair.
Facial hair and hair, yeah. And I think he was holding on, and he was very stagnant. He was like a classic, like, stagnant boyfriend or husband. And she said at the end, like, I'm making all these decisions, you're not doing anything. And yeah, he, like, I think just didn't really care. I think he cared. His depression stopped him from, like, actually being a productive part of that relationship. So I do think that, it was probably not a good relationship.
Yeah, his response to her saying that was, I just don't want what you want. Yeah. And I think that when he said that, I was just like, oh, man.
They're going to break up. Yeah. But then at the end, he's like, oh, I'm okay with moving out. He did say that, actually, at the start, too. Like, I want to move out. But I don't think that solves his depression, necessarily. So.
No, I thought this was an interesting, it was a very brief, like Kelly said, where you don't get a lot, but they show you a lot of kind of like gray areas in relationships where, if you're in a real relationship and not just a facade, you have a lot of ups and downs and a lot of controversy and deep conversations that you have to have with each other. And I think they showed a lot of those where you don't really know what way it's going to go, because they could have a very healthy relationship where they talk about things instead of just not. And depression and mental health is a thing that happens throughout a lot of relationships that you deal with. So I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was a very realistic portrayal, and it turns out that David Lowery, kind of wrote this about his relationship with his, I believe, wife or significant other, about the process of them essentially moving to LA and him not wanting to, which is obviously comes across through this film with them talking about leaving the house and not wanting to, and that whole aspect. So I thought it was very well done.
I like also they kind of play with the idea of, like, as soon as he gets in that house, it's like he knows that's where he's gonna stay, and it's just like this, like,
he's already been there.
like Well, like
Yeah.
living him, like has this like unspoken, like just kind of feeling of there's something to these walls that I'm gonna be tied
History.
to.
Yeah, we got history here, baby.
So when you guys are looking for new homes, be mindful of that kind of feeling. You might get a hint.
Does anyone have anything else that they would like to touch on before we go into our final reviews? Any things that we haven't talked
Yeah,
about?
what
Any
did we
nitpicks?
think of Casey Affleck's voice?
It's hard to hear him. I was saying
mumbled.
this, like sometimes it's very hard to hear him, and he looks and sounds exactly like he did in Manchester by the Sea, and that's the film he won Best Actor for. Yeah, he's just a depressed guy who's kind of mumbling. I think he did a good job in this film, but yeah, it's hard to hear him at times. I'm not gonna lie.
I had a hard time because he speaks in a very like high throaty register and mumbles. And
Mumbles.
it was difficult for me to kind of piece together some of those words, and I was hoping he would snap out of it, and that's just the way he talks, I suppose.
Yeah.
He's
I
come
turned
a far
on,
away from saying my boy's wicked smart in Good Will Hunting. So
Yeah. I turned on closed captions because when the scene where they're cuddling and he's like talking to her and he's like, I love you, and you're like, I don't know what's happening, so I had to turn it on, and that's when I learned that closed captions for Spanish just says Spanish.
Speaking Spanish.
It doesn't tell you anything else. So, oh boy. All right. Let's. If no one else has anything else they want to touch on, let's get into these reviews. Let's go with Mr. Kevin K. Konkonachek for his review first.
Hooray!
See where
All right.
he goes.
I guess so. It's not going to be a surprise to our listeners if you've already got this far in the episode that I liked this movie. I liked it a lot. I finished this film, and as the last scene ended, I immediately started crying.
Aw.
And it was emotional. It reminded me of every single person. I've kind of already touched this. Every single person I've lost in my life, and they all were ghosts in that moment. They were all right there. They were all telling me things that I should have seen, or lessons, or whatever it may have been. This movie was a journey that made me feel attachment to the other side, regardless if I believe the other side exists. And that is huge. It might have been, the amount of beers that I've had tonight, but like, I really have felt that during this entire review, I've kind of enjoyed this movie even more so talking about it than I did while reviewing it. Something from the artistic start to the middle to the way that it concluded, I just felt in tuned to it. I felt something that was something special. I felt like it was watching or writing itself for me for one way or another. I don't know why, but I really just thought this movie was everything that I anticipated an A24 movie to be. Something different, something off the beaten path, something that makes me question what a film can be, what it should be, what I can take away from a movie. I don't think I've ever would have expected to see the, proverbial ghosts of all of my lost friends and family after finishing a movie, or feeling a rush of emotion of the idea that I wish I could talk to all of them, or they could see my life in a certain way. But this movie did that. It made me actually want to, reach out to those people that I haven't thought about or maybe talked to even in my own dark emotions for a long time. And it was just really something powerful. It made me think about what I'm doing as a living person too. Like, if that ghost is watching you, what does that look like? What are you doing? What are you doing for a legacy, right? We even mentioned that in this film too, with the idea of if a legacy even matters, if the idea that you're writing art or something difficult for someone else to take away, does that even make a difference? Or is it about you? Is it about what you're creating in that moment? And this movie does all of this in 90 minutes. It does all of this with little to no dialogue. It does all of this with long shots of pie eating and skyscrapers and ghost suicide and all of the weird things that we've kind of touched about in this movie, but it makes it so beautiful. And I don't want anyone else's opinion of this that is different than mine to be like less valuable or less varied. But I think it's really important for me to take away what I took away from this movie. And that's why we do this. And that's why we watch film and we take in art and we embrace music and cinema and everything, because it means so different for everybody. And I apologize if I'm rambling, but this movie was great and I can't wait to watch it again, because it's going to mean something different the second time around. I'm going to take those lessons and kind of embrace it as I'm enjoying the silence or the song and all of it in between. So A24 for me, this definitely fits right down the middle of what I'm looking for in a unique and new movie. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you guys for kind of bringing me in on this, because these are the things that I don't know if I ever would have experienced otherwise. So thank you. I appreciate it.
We love you, Kevin.
We love you.
Question: how does the girl, the little pioneer girl, humming the song that Casey Affleck writes later, but it's in the past? How does that connect? Eric, I need you to help me with this ghost timeline. I am still confused.
Okay, so this is something I might have. Well, I mean, like, okay,
you can go ahead.
I do think that this film has something to say about like how, I guess, the cyclical. This is an actual quote from Collider.com. The cyclical nature of time means the ripples of grief and recollection echo throughout a longer period than the brief time a person is on the mortal cell or coil. And I think it's kind of like when we like inhabit these houses we live in and places we live in, I think there is just a bit left behind from everybody who's ever lived here. Like, even if we don't consciously notice it, there subconsciously we feel something from everybody left behind before us, and maybe that's our legacy. It's just kind of the energy we leave behind in the world, even though people might not know us at all.
The home Eric and I live in is 100 years old, and the people who inherit it after us will feel the energy of me taking shots of strawberry vodka in the kitchen.
Yeah.
They'll feel this podcast.
They'll feel this. Yeah. Feel this energy, bruh.
All right, Kelly, give us your energy vibes and rating for this film.
Okay, bros, open it up to this energy. I want you to put your fist to the screen of whatever you're watching or listening to this podcast on. Let's go, PewDiePies. Anyways, I've been drinking a little bit.
Okay, my fellow kids.
Hey, fellow kids. All right, so this movie brought out, I think I have ADHD based on watching this movie, and also because of some of the thoughts that have come out in therapy. But regardless of that, this movie, like I said, had a pre and post pie scene. And pre-pie scene was me in our previous podcast talking about, like, there's always going to be a personal aspect, obviously, to reviewing movies. I can't review it in a vacuum derived of everything that I have personally coming into it. And I was very much looking forward to this just because of the subject matter. But what I didn't expect from this movie, and if I didn't have this expectation, I probably would appreciate it more. What I didn't expect from it was for it to be a meditative, introspective piece more than anything else. I don't think that this movie really takes and hands you a lot as much as it asks from you. And a lot of what it asks from you is patience. And in return, it gives you lots of things to sit there and think about, lots of art in that regard. And I wrote down in my notes, all of the bounty of this movie comes to you if you just give it a little bit of patience. And I think under different circumstances or different expectations, I would have had that to give to it, but I didn't have it on this viewing, unfortunately. And that tainted the experience for me. So expectations versus reality shifted it. And I also think that this movie's so different where it like doesn't really apply to my normal grading scale of like make me think, make me feel, show me something interesting. Like, it doesn't really live on that plane. I think that this is very much like, it's a guided meditation in movie form, is how I think of this movie. And I also, because it has to be a personal review,
I appreciate it for all of those aspects and the fact that it brings it out, but for me, it's not what I necessarily expected, and it's not what I, like, wanted. But because it's so personal, that's like the never-ending loop of what this movie is. I think that at different times in my life and different circumstances, like, not to say that I haven't experienced loss in the way that this movie wants me to think about it, but maybe different losses will make me feel a different way. And that's the thing about this movie, is like, it's always going to be applicable in that kind of regard. That's the other thing too, is everything I'm saying about this movie isn't even about what's necessarily on screen. It's so much something that you experience like on a different plane, just like Ghost experiences life and time on a different plane. So all this happens, and I understand all of that coming forward, and I think the more I talk about it, the more I'm understanding it. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, it just didn't fit for me, and it was boring, and I wanted to watch it in twice the speed. And at this place and time, it isn't what I expected. It isn't what I wanted, and it's not like I want an action-packed ghost movie. But maybe I wanted more darkness. Maybe I wanted more not pie scenes. Of course, I've already touched on that, but like, I know what they're doing. It just isn't my taste, I think, is what it all boils down to. So while I appreciate it, I don't love it, and I definitely don't hate it. So with that in mind, it's a C+ 24.
All right, I will go next, and we'll save Eric for last. I will say that I had, like, throughout this film, I was very, I was going to say very up and down, but I was pretty down on this movie, like, watching it. There's a lot of things I did not enjoy. There was a lot of things that I, like, went into this film from the get-go with the aspect ratio and the film gradient. I guess I just have a negative connotation with that. But as it kind of progressed and the story unfolded and some of these things kind of, I guess, opened my eyes to it, I started to appreciate the film a lot more. It's even a film that's grown on me more after I, like, finished it, and I kind of went back and I thought about it. And I think it's a film that I would probably watch again with even more knowledge of what's going to happen. But it was not a perfect film, and there's a lot of things. I'm a big 90-minute guy, but this felt longer. It felt like there was, some of those scenes I don't think needed to be as long as they were, and I wish they explored more of when he goes back in time, where he's a ghost viewing his own relationship and stuff. I thought that was very cool and unique. It was funny how we got there, but we still got there, and I liked what I got out of it. But I just feel like it just needed to be more, and I was mad that we got the 3 minutes of looking at a gurney in the 10-15 minute pie scene, and we got only 10 minutes of their relationship at the end. I mean, we spent 20 minutes staring at almost nothing that could have been 30 seconds and gotten the same kind of feeling, maybe not as in depth and kind of that helplessness, emptiness, depression type vibes, so I understand that, but I still just wish I got more of the after, so to speak, and kind of that conclusion. Just felt a little rushed when it was a movie that at times I was bored. So I will say I liked this film, and I've already mentioned that I want to watch it again. When I first finished it, I was like, this is probably a C-. Not going to be much better, but after stewing on it and doing some more research and reading about stuff before this podcast and kind of looking back at it, it's grown a lot on me. I will say it's not an A for me, but I'm going to go with a B- 24. So I do like it. I think it's a good indie, like, artistic film, and the fact that it's brought to us by the director who also brought us Boy Crazy Bikini Mayhem Mishap. I mean, it's truly a work of art. So, Eric, you tell me. You're up next.
There are two wolves that live inside of you.
Yeah, the sincere one and the one who goes bikini, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, he made 3 of them, by the way. Boy Crazy series. There's a whole short film series.
The whole
One wolf says
thing.
3 bikini mishaps. The other says a ghost story.
Yeah.
So
I should have went first.
So I wanted to start out my review with the quote at the start of the movie. Whatever hour you woke, there was a door shutting. I was wondering what this really meant the entirety of the film. Like, it's from Virginia Woolf, a short story called A Haunted House. Like, I was thinking, like, is this like the law of averages? Whenever one person is born, somebody else dies. Or is this, I don't know, just like some random quote that I cannot decipher. But as I've read more and more into Virginia Woolf's short story, I think it's actually about how every person's lived experience in a house echoes throughout eternity. And like I was saying earlier, even though we might not all know who else has lived here and the time they've spent here, or even the legacy that they have put upon this earth, we feel it, I think, every day. Like, I think that there are subconscious feelings that we get every day from other people's lived experiences and what they chose to do with their life while they were here. And that's what I kept on, like, kind of echoing throughout this podcast, is like what a person chooses to do with their life while they're here does matter. And if we just like constantly think about the futility of existence and how everything's just going to evaporate eventually, then we might as well all just murder each other, I guess, right? So, like, it doesn't matter. We're all just fucked, and like, nothing fucking matters. So I really, like, hate that kind of thinking. I think that is what leads to so much mayhem on this earth. And I think this film is actually, like, a great reflection on how, like, what we do in our lives actually does matter. And I think that our director/writer was going through an existential crisis during this whole film, and he was answering himself throughout the way that, like, my time with my wife here, it matters. How I react and respond to my wife and how our relationship grows really does matter throughout our life. And we need to, like, think about these things and be conscious of these things throughout this whole time. So that's from a philosophical standpoint, but from a film standpoint, the cinematography in here was beautiful. I actually really enjoyed the choice to put in a different aspect ratio. I really enjoyed the acting by Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara. Rooney Mara has so many good roles that I really enjoy. Like, she's one of my favorite actresses doing work nowadays. And, you know, this film made us think. I think that in the end, it did have a simple point. And it did have kind of just like an observationalist, voyeuristic, like, view of life in general. You could think more into it if you wanted, or you could think less into it if you wanted. But I think the fact that it just invites conversation, it actually creates a concrete story for me, even though we get the timelines messed up, I guess. I think the timelines were pretty simple to me. They were just kind of like a time loop. I like enjoyed that part, and I think from the start to the end, it like made me feel, and it gave me a good story that I thought a lot about right after. And so I'm gonna come out on this film positively. Not quite gonna go into the A category, but I will give it a B plus 24, and I will be just a little bit below Kevin. I think that was the grade that I gave Under the Skin when I first saw it. And I thought more favorably after I viewed it. So maybe I'll think upon this more and even give it a higher grade. But right now, I think B+.
All right. Well, I think we can all agree that this movie is definitely very artistic, very beautiful, and leads to a lot of discussions and a lot of introspective and thinking. So if that interests you, You probably should have already seen the movie, so I don't know what you're doing now.
And you're here,
But
90 minutes into our podcast, so thanks.
Yeah. We appreciate everyone that listens, supports us along the way. If you do like this podcast, again, we're watching all of the films in chronological order from the release date of the A24 catalog. We're in 2017. We're going to continue on. We're 52 in, and there's a lot more to go, and we're excited to do it, and we appreciate you guys for joining us on the ride. Like and subscribe. Give us 5-star review. If you don't like Kevin's review, that's okay. We don't either. I hope you all have a good night.
I liked it.
No, I don't mean that. You can disagree with me. That's fine. It's cool. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate you.
Thanks for being an A24 nerd just like us.
A24.